The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets inside the rundown convenience store on the edge of Route 66, casting harsh shadows over the cracked linoleum floor. It was just past midnight in the dusty outskirts of a forgotten Nevada town, where the air hung heavy with the scent of stale coffee and motor oil from the highway. Lily, a girl no older than 12, sat hunched in her wheelchair near the counter, her small hands trembling as she clutched a crumpled photo of her mother. Her legs, twisted from a childhood accident that had left her confined to wheels, didn't stop the fear from surging through her like wildfire. Tears carved clean paths down her dust-streaked cheeks as she whispered to the empty aisles, "Mom, please come back." The store clerk, a weary man named Harlan, with grease-stained fingers, had locked the doors an hour ago after spotting trouble brewing outside. A group of rough-looking men, locals with grudges and badges that meant nothing good, had been circling the parking lot in unmarked trucks, their headlights slicing through the night like accusations. Lily's mum, Sarah, worked the late shift here, but she'd vanished into the back room after a heated argument with the store owner over unpaid wages. Now, shouts echoed from the alley behind the building, muffled but unmistakable. Demands, threats, the kind that promised harm without spelling it out. Lily's heart pounded as she wheeled closer to the glass door, peering into the darkness. "Mom!" she called, her voice cracking, but only the wind answered, carrying the faint metallic tang of impending rain. That's when the first rumble shattered the silence, a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the ground like an earthquake's warning. Lily froze, her wide eyes reflecting the sudden flood of headlights piercing the gloom. Not trucks, motorcycles, dozens of them, engines roaring in unison as they poured into the lot like a steel river unleashed. Chrome gleamed under the store's flickering sign, leather jackets creaking as riders dismounted with purposeful grace. At their head was Ethan, a weathered man in his late 40s, his face etched with lines from years of sun-baked roads and buried regrets. His graying beard hid scars from a long-ago war, and the patch on his vest read, "Hell's Angels," not the monsters of urban legend, but a brotherhood forged in the fires of forgotten oaths. Ethan killed his engine first, the silence that followed heavier than the noise. He strode toward the store, his boots crunching gravel, while his crew, 55 strong, a convoy that had ridden through the night from a distant rally, fanned out, forming an unyielding circle around the building. No weapons drawn, no shouts, just presence, a wall of leather and iron that spoke of loyalty deeper than blood. Lily pressed her face to the glass, her breath fogging it up. Who are you?" she stammered as Ethan tapped on the door, his voice gravelly but kind through the barrier. "Name's Ethan, kid. Saw your face light up this place from the road. What's got you looking like the world's ending?" He glanced over his shoulder at the alley, where shadows shifted uneasily now, the men's trucks idling with hesitation. Lily's wheelchair creaked as she backed up, fear warring with hope. "My mom, Sarah, she's in trouble. Those men, they work for the boss. He says she stole money, but she didn't. She's all I got, and I'm like this." She gestured weakly to her legs, voice breaking. "Please protect my mom. She's all I have left." Ethan's eyes, hardened by loss, his own wife taken by illness years back, a promise to her to always stand for the vulnerable, softened just a fraction. He nodded once, signaling his crew. The bikers moved like a well-oiled machine, some blocking the alley, others standing sentinel at every exit. It wasn't aggression, it was guardianship, the kind born from a code that time couldn't erode. "You got my word, Lily. No one's touching her tonight, or any night we ride." Inside, Harlan fumbled with the lock, letting Ethan in while the circle held firm outside. The air thickened with the scent of rain finally breaking, pattering against the roof like hesitant applause. Ethan knelt to Lily's level, his massive frame folding with unexpected gentleness. "Tell me what happened from the start. We've got stories of our own, promises we keep, no matter the miles. As Lily spilled the tale, how Sarah had taken the job to support them after her father's abandonment, how the owner's greed had twisted into false accusations, how the enforcers had shown up demanding repayment with interest that smelled of extortion. Ethan listened, his jaw tightening. He remembered his own vow, made under a desert sky to a dying comrade. Protect the innocent, ride for the broken. That oath had pulled him from retirement, reuniting his scattered crew for this very call. A tip from an old contact about a single mom cornered in the Badlands. Outside, the trucks revved nervously, headlights bobbing as drivers weighed their odds against the immovable phalanx of bikes. One man stepped forward, a burly figure with a badge pinned crookedly to his shirt, shouting, "This ain't your business, biker trash! Back off before we call in real law." Ethan stepped out, rain slicking his hair, and met the man's gaze through the downpour. Real law. We're the ones who remember what honor means. You touch that woman, you answer to more than badges. His crew rumbled in agreement, engines idling like a chorus of restrained thunder. Back inside, Lily wheeled to the backroom door, pounding weakly. "Mom, it's okay. They're here to help." A muffled sob answered, and Sarah emerged, pale and shaken, her apron torn at the hem, signs of a struggle hastily concealed. She froze at the sight of the bikers silhouetted against the storm, but Lily's plea bridged the gap. "They promised, Mom, like Dad used to say. Words that stick." Sarah knelt beside her daughter, pulling her close as Ethan watched from the doorway. The rain hammered harder, washing the lot in sheets of silver, but the circle held. This intervention, born from a midnight sighting and an old promise resurfacing like a ghost, was just the spark. It would bind them all, bikers, mother, child, in a ride toward justice that no storm could quench. As the first grey light of dawn crept over the horizon, tinting the chrome bikes with promise, Ethan turned to his second-in-command, a grizzled veteran named Marcus. "We ride with them till it's right. For the kid, for the word we gave." And in that moment, under the relentless Nevada sky, a forgotten oath reignited, pulling shadows into the light. The rain had turned the parking lot into a slick mirror, reflecting the jagged outlines of the Hells Angels' bikes like sentinels forged from storm and steel. Ethan stood in the doorway of the convenience store, his broad shoulders blocking the wind as he scanned the shadows beyond the circle of his brothers. Sarah clutched Lily's wheelchair, her fingers white-knuckled on the armrest, while the girl's eyes darted between her mother and the wall of leather-clad guardians outside. Harlan, the clerk, hovered nearby, wiping his hands on a rag that smelled of old fries and desperation. His face a map of quiet gratitude mixed with fear. "They're not going to back down easy," Ethan said, his voice low and steady, cutting through the patter of rain on the roof. He turned to Sarah, his gaze piercing but not unkind. "Those men out there, they're tied to the owner, ain't they? Tell me the whole truth, Mom. We've ridden into worse than this, but we need to know the road ahead." Sarah hesitated, her lips trembling as she glanced at Lily, who nodded fiercely despite the chill seeping into her bones. The store's fluorescent hum seemed louder in the pause, a reminder of the fragile normalcy they'd shattered. Finally she spoke, her words tumbling out like pebbles down a ravine. "It started months ago," she said, "when the owner, a slick operator named Victor Hale, had promised her steady shifts to cover Lily's medical bills after the accident that stole her legs. But Hale's books were crooked, skimmed from suppliers and padded with ghost employees. When Sarah stumbled on receipts hidden in the back office, proof of his schemes, she'd confronted him. Instead of thanks, he'd twisted it, accused her of theft, claimed she'd taken cash from the register to fund her lazy habits. The enforcers were his muscle, locals with ties to a corrupt sheriff's deputy, sent to scare her into silence or flight. "I didn't steal a dime," Sarah whispered. her voice breaking as she stroked Lily's hair. But he said if I talked, he'd make sure no one believed us. Lily's all I have left. Her dad walked out years ago, left us with nothing but bills and broken dreams. I took this job to keep her safe, to get her the therapy she needs. Now they're saying they'll take her away if I don't pay what I don't owe. Lily's small hand squeezed her mother's, tears mixing with raindrops on her cheeks. Mom, don't let them. These men, they came for us. Like knights in stories. Ethan's jaw clenched, memories flooding back unbidden. The desert heat of a far-off war zone, the acrid smoke of a convoy ambush, his comrade Jake gasping his last breath under a bloodied sky. "Promise me, Ethan," Jake had said, clutching a faded photo of his own kid sister. "Protect the ones who can't fight back. Make it mean something." Ethan had buried that vow deep after the war, letting the open road numb the ache. But sightings like Lily's desperate face in the store window had yanked it to the surface. His crew, scattered by life but bound by that same unspoken code, had answered his call without question. 55 riders, from welders in Reno to mechanics in Phoenix, converging like fate's own thunder. Outside, the tension coiled tighter. The burly enforcer with the crooked badge, calling himself Deputy Rollins, stepped closer to the bike line, his truck's headlights washing the riders in harsh white. Water streamed from his hat brim as he barked, "You out-of-towners think you can play hero? This is Hale's turf. That woman's a thief, and we're here to collect. Move or we'll make you." Marcus, Ethan's second, a bear of a man with tattoos snaking up his arms like forgotten rivers, revved his engine in response. The sound rolled through the lot, like a warning growl, echoed by the others. No one drew iron. It wasn't their way anymore. These angels had traded bullets for brotherhood years back, channeling fury into shields for the overlooked. "Turf," Marcus called back, his voice booming over the rain. "We ride where the innocent call. You want her? You go through us. Fair warning, we've got miles of honor you can't touch." Rollins sneered, gesturing to his two companions, who flanked him with heavy boots splashing puddles. They advanced a few steps, testing the line, but the bikers held like ancient oaks in a gale. One rider, a wiry vet named Tyler, with a prosthetic hand from the same war that scarred Ethan, shifted his bike forward just enough to block the path. The air crackled with unspoken threats, the scent of wet leather mingling with exhaust as engines idled low. Inside, Ethan pulled out his phone, the screen glowing faintly as he dialed an old contact, a retired investigator who'd once ridden with them before trading the vest for a desk. "Noah, it's Ethan. Need dirt on a Victor Hale in Nevada Badlands. Convenience store scam. False accusations against a single mom. Make it quick, we're holding the line." He hung up, turning to Harlan. "You see anything? Receipts, ledgers?" The clerk nodded shakily, leading them to the back office. Amid stacks of yellowed invoices and a flickering desk lamp, he unearthed a hidden drawer. Sarah's doing, she'd admitted, stashing evidence for a rainy day that had arrived in torrents. "She showed me once," Harlan muttered. "Said it was insurance. Hale's been cooking books for years, dodging taxes, strong-arming suppliers." And as they pored over the papers, the muffled shouts outside escalated. A scuffle broke out, Rollins shoving at Tyler's bike, met with a firm pushback that sent the deputy stumbling into a puddle. Engines roared in unison, a symphony of restraint, but the circle tightened, bikes forming an impenetrable ring. Lily wheeled to the window, her breath catching. "They're fighting. For us." Sarah wrapped her arms around her daughter, the warmth of the gesture a fragile anchor. "Not fighting, standing. That's what real strength looks like." Ethan pocketed a key document, a forged IOU in Sarah's name, and stepped back out into the storm, rain plastering his shirt to his scars. "Enough games," he growled at Rollins, who was wiping mud from his face. "We've got proof Hale's the crook here. You walk now, or we ride this to the state line, badges or no." The deputy hesitated, eyes flicking to his men, then to the unyielding wall of riders. Thunder rumbled overhead as if the sky itself approved. Slowly, he backed toward his truck, muttering curses that dissolved in the downpour. The enforcers peeled out one by one, taillights fading into the night like retreating ghosts. But Ethan knew it wasn't over. Hale's reach was longer than a desert shadow, and this spark of defiance would draw more heat. As dawn's first light pierced the clouds, gilding the wet chrome, he gathered his crew. We escort them home, then dig deeper, for the promise we made, the one that keeps us riding. Sarah and Lily emerged, the girl's wheelchair guided by Marcus's steady hand. The convoy reformed, engines humming with purpose, carrying them into the waking world. Yet in the rear view of Ethan's mind, Jake's voice echoed, "Protect them." And as the road unspooled ahead, slick and unforgiving, Ethan felt the weight of it all, a chosen family expanding, one oath at a time, toward a justice that burned brighter than any storm. The sun climbed higher over the Nevada Badlands, turning the rain-slicked highway into a ribbon of shimmering asphalt that stretched like a promise toward the horizon. Ethan's convoy led the way, 55 bikes humming in disciplined formation, their chrome flanks catching the light in flashes of defiant silver. Sarah's old sedan followed close, Lily's wheelchair secured in the back seat beside her, the girl's face pressed to the window as if drinking in the miracle of motion. Marcus rode shotgun in a battered pickup that trailed the group, loaded with spare parts and the evidence they'd salvaged from the store, those crumpled receipts and forged papers that whispered of deeper rot. Ethan glanced in his rearview mirror, the wind whipping at his beard as the desert air filled his lungs with the dry scent of sagebrush and sun-warmed earth. Home for Sarah and Lily was a modest trailer on the outskirts of Willow Creek, a cluster of weathered homes clinging to the edge of nothing. He'd gotten the address from Harlan before they rolled out, the clerk waving them off with a nod that carried the weight of unspoken thanks. "Watch your backs," Harlan had said, his voice barely audible over the idling engines. "Hale's got eyes everywhere." The ride was a symphony of restrained power, the steady thrum of Harley's vibrating through bone and soul, punctuated by the occasional whoop from a rider breaking the tension. Tyler, the vet with the prosthetic, rode point beside Ethan, his good hand gripping the throttle like a lifeline. "Reminds me of NAM patrols," Tyler shouted over the roar, his eyes scanning the empty road. "Quiet before the ambush. But this time, we're the ones with the high ground." Ethan nodded, his mind drifting to Jake again, that final patrol under a merciless sun. The explosion that had claimed his friend's life and left Ethan with scars that ran deeper than skin. Jake's photo, tucked in his vest pocket now, felt heavier with each mile. "Yeah," he replied, voice lost to the wind but clear in his thoughts. "But we're not hunting ghosts anymore. This is for the living, the ones who need a shield." As Willow Creek came into view, a haze of dust rising from its gravel streets, the convoy slowed. The town was a forgotten postcard, faded diners with peeling paint, a single gas station where pumps creaked in the breeze, and trailers huddled like survivors of some long-ago storm. Sarah's place sat at the end of a rutted lane, its blue siding chipped but proud, a small ramp at the door built with calloused hands and quiet love. She pulled up first, killing the engine as the bikes encircled the yard like faithful hounds, engines cutting off in a cascading silence that settled like dust. Lily wheeled out with Sarah's help, her eyes wide at the sea of leather and iron now guarding their threshold. "It's like a fortress," she breathed, the morning light catching the hope in her smile. One rider, a soft-spoken giant named Benjamin, with a medic's patch on his sleeve, dismounted and knelt beside her. "Fortresses are for keeping the dark out, kid. We've got your 6. Inside the trailer, the air was cool and close, scented with chamomile tea and the faint lavender of Lily's blanket. Sarah busied herself brewing coffee, her hands steadier now, but still tracing the edges of fear. The space was a testament to resilience. Medical charts pinned to the fridge, a shelf of dog-eared books on wildflowers and far-off places, photos of Lily before the accident, laughing in a park, legs strong and free. Ethan accepted a mug, settling at the scarred kitchen table with Marcus and Tyler, the papers spread out like a battlefield map. "Look at this," Marcus said, tapping a ledger page with a thick finger. Hale's handwriting looped deceitfully, entries fudged to siphon funds into offshore accounts, money meant for community aid diverted to line pockets. Sarah had marked the discrepancies in pencil, her notes a quiet rebellion, dates, amounts, whispers of bribes to local officials. He's not just skimming the store. This ties to the sheriff's office. Rollins is on the take, probably more. Sarah sank into a chair, exhaustion etching lines around her eyes. "I found it by accident, cleaning the office one night. Thought I could use it to negotiate better pay, get Lily into that program in Reno. But Hale, he saw me looking, started the rumors, said I'd fabricated it all to cover my debts. Then the threats came, phone calls at night, shadows outside the window. I was scared to tell anyone, especially with Lily's condition. What if they used her against me?" Lily, parked nearby with a sketch pad in her lap, looked up sharply. "Mom, you should have said. These guys, they're like the family we never had." Her words hung in the air, simple but piercing, stirring something in Ethan. His own chosen kin, the Angels, had filled the void left by a war that took more than lives. Brothers like Marcus, who'd lost a son to the streets and found purpose in the ride. Tyler, piecing himself back together 1 mile at a time. Ethan's phone buzzed then, Noah's name lighting the screen. He stepped onto the porch, the wood creaking under his boots. As the crew milled outside, some checking tires, others sharing smokes and stories in low tones. "Talk to me," Ethan said into the device. Noah's voice crackled, efficient as ever. "Dug into Hale. He's got a web, shell companies, ties to a bigger syndicate moving goods through the Badlands. That store's a front for laundering. Sarah's theft, a setup to discredit her if she talked. And Rollins, suspended once for roughing up a witness, but protected by the sheriff. I've got contacts feeding this to a clean fed in Vegas. But Ethan, it's heating up. Hale's already calling in favors. Expect company." Ethan ended the call, staring out at the endless sky where clouds gathered like unspoken doubts. He rejoined the group inside, laying it out plain. "This ain't ending at your door, Sarah. Hale's poison runs deep, corruption that's choking this whole town. We ride for justice, not just tonight's standoff. Means exposing him, protecting folks like you and Lily from the fallout." Sarah met his gaze, a spark of resolve igniting. "And if it costs you, your club, your freedom, then it's a price worth paying," Ethan replied, echoing Jake's vow in his mind. "Promises like ours don't break for cowards." Outside, a distant engine growl pierced the calm. Trucks again, dust plumes rising on the horizon. The crew mounted up without a word, forming ranks as Sarah and Lily watched from the window. Benjamin lingered, offering Lily a small angel pin from his vest. "For luck, kid. Wear it when you need wings." As the threat approached, the bikes roared to life, a thunderous barrier against the encroaching shadows. Ethan led the line, heart steady with the weight of oaths renewed. This ride, through dust and doubt, was weaving their fates tighter, a family forged in the crucible of honor, chasing a dawn where truth outshone the lies. The road ahead twisted, but they faced it together, engines singing of unbreakable bonds. The dust devils swirled like angry spirits across the rutted lane leading to Sarah's trailer, kicked up by the approaching trucks that growled closer with each passing second. Ethan gripped his handlebars, the leather worn smooth from years of unyielding miles, as his eyes narrowed against the glare of the rising sun. The convoy held formation, bikes angled in a protective V around the trailer. engines idling with a low menace that vibrated through the ground. Marcus flanked him on the left, his massive frame hunched forward, while Tyler and Benjamin bookended the rear, their postures a silent vow of solidarity. Inside, Sarah pressed Lily close to the window, the girl's fingers tracing the angel pin Benjamin had given her, its metal cool against her palm. The lead truck, a battered Ford with mud-caked tires, skidded to a halt 20 yards out, flanked by two more, their doors creaking open to spill out a half-dozen men. Rollins was at the front again, his crooked badge glinting mockingly. But this time, he wasn't alone. A taller figure emerged from the passenger side, slick-haired and sharp-suited despite the heat. Victor Hale himself, his face a mask of calculated calm, eyes scanning the biker line like a predator sizing up obstacles. The air thickened with the scent of hot rubber and tension, the desert wind carrying whispers of sage and sweat. "Impressive turnout," Hale called, his voice oily smooth, stepping forward with hands raised in feigned peace. "But this is private business. That woman inside owes me. Debts that don't concern you road warriors. Roll out, and I'll forget you were here." Ethan dismounted slowly, his boots sinking into the gravel with deliberate weight, the rest of the crew following suit in a ripple of leather and resolve. He stopped just beyond arm's reach, close enough to catch the faint cologne masking Hale's unease. "Private. Not when it involves a kid begging for protection and a mother fighting lies. We've seen your kind before, hiding behind accusations while the truth bleeds out. Sarah didn't take a cent. You planted the seeds to bury her." Hale's smile faltered, a flicker of calculation crossing his features as he glanced at Rollins, who shifted uncomfortably, hand hovering near his belt. The enforcers behind them muttered, boots scuffing the dirt, but the biker's presence loomed like an unbreakable horizon. No gaps, no retreat. Lily watched from the trailer door, her wheelchair positioned just inside, Sarah's arm around her shoulders like a shield. The girl's plea echoed in Ethan's mind, "Protect my mom." It intertwined with Jake's dying words, a chorus pulling him forward. "You're out of your depth, old man," Rollins spat, emboldened by Hale's nod. "This town's got rules. We enforce them. That evidence you think you have, fabricated by a desperate thief." He gestured vaguely toward the trailer, his eyes locking on Lily for a beat too long, a veiled threat that made Sarah's grip tighten. Marcus stepped up beside Ethan, his voice a rumble like distant thunder. "Rules. Yours are bent to breaking. We've got the papers, your boss's own handwriting, showing the skim, the bribes. Noah's already passing it up the chain to folks who don't look the other way." The mention of the investigator hung in the air, a seed of doubt planted amid the standoff. Hale's composure cracked, his fingers twitching as if itching for a phone that might not save him this time. From the trailer, Lily's voice pierced the standoff, small but fierce. "You're the thieves. Mum works every night so I can have a chance. Therapy, a real life. You can't take that." Her words, raw with the pain of lost mobility and a father's absence, rippled through the group. One of Hale's men, a younger enforcer with a scarred knuckle, hesitated, his gaze dropping to the ground, the moral weight settling like dust on his conscience. Ethan seized the moment, his tone steady as sun-baked earth. "This ain't about money or turf. It's about a promise, to stand for the broken when the system's blind. My brother Jake taught me that, dying in the sand with nothing but his word. We've ridden wars and wastes to keep it. You push this, Hale, and you're facing more than bikes. You're facing truth that don't bend." Hale's eyes darted to the horizon, where a faint siren wailed, perhaps a real patrol drawn by the gathering storm, or Noah's contacts stirring the pot. Sweat beaded on his brow despite the dry heat. "You don't know who you're crossing," he hissed, but the bluster rang hollow. Rollins backed a step, signaling his men to regroup, the truck's engines coughing to life as doubt infected their ranks. The bikers didn't advance, they simply held, an unmovable testament to chosen loyalty. Benjamin knelt by Lily's side at the door, his medic's calm a balm. Breathe easy, kid. Storms pass when the ground's firm. Inside, Sarah whispered thanks, her voice thick with unshed tears. The trailer's walls feeling less like a cage and more like a haven under the angel's watch. As the trucks reversed, kicking up gravel in retreat, Ethan felt the shift, a fragile victory, but one that exposed the cracks in Hale's empire. He turned to his crew, the sun now high enough to cast long shadows that danced like allies. We ain't done. Noah's digging. But we need eyes on the town, watch the roads, guard the home. This promise pulls us deeper now. Sarah emerged fully, wheeling Lily closer to the group, the air between them charged with newfound bonds. "Why us?" she asked Ethan softly, the wind tugging at her hair. "Because some oaths don't fade," he replied, glancing at the angel pin glinting on Lily's collar. "They ride on, carrying the light." The convoy reformed loosely, some riders peeling off to scout the perimeter, while others lingered, sharing water from canteens and quiet assurances. In the distance, Willow Creek stirred to life. A mechanic's clang, a child's laugh, oblivious yet to the ripple of justice unfolding. But for Ethan, the road ahead sharpened. Hale's web would tangle further, drawing in old allies and new perils. Yet with each mile, the family grew, forged not in blood, but in the quiet fire of standing true. The desert whispered approval, vast and eternal, as they prepared for the shadows yet to come. If this tale of unbreakable promises and quiet courage touched your heart, smash that like button below. It helps these stories reach more souls in need of hope. The afternoon sun beat down on Willow Creek like a relentless interrogator, turning the air into a shimmering haze that distorted the edges of trailers and scrub brush. Ethan wiped sweat from his brow, leaning against his bike in the shade of Sarah's porch, the metal frame still warm from the ride. The crew had split duties. Marcus and a handful of riders patrolled the town's fringes on dusty back roads, their engines a distant hum that echoed like watchful guardians. Tyler scouted the main drag, eyes peeled for any sign of Hale's shadows creeping back, while Benjamin stayed close to the trailer, his medic bag slung over one shoulder, as he chatted with Lily about the wildflowers she'd sketched earlier. Inside, Sarah poured fresh coffee into mismatched mugs, the steam rising in lazy curls that carried the rich, grounding aroma of roasted beans. Her hands trembled less now, steadied by the rhythm of small acts, normalcy reclaiming its foothold amid the chaos. Lily wheeled between the kitchen and living room, her sketchpad open to a new page, a rough outline of bikes encircling a home, angels with wings of chrome. "It's like we're in one of those old movies," she said, her voice brighter, though shadows of doubt lingered in her eyes. "The good guys win, right? Even when the bad ones come back stronger?" Ethan accepted the mug with a nod, settling into a worn armchair that creaked under his weight. The room felt smaller with him in it, his presence a bulwark against the uncertainty pressing in from outside. "They always do, kid. But winning ain't about fists or speed, it's about holding the line when the wind howls fiercest." He sipped the coffee, the bitterness a sharp counterpoint to the sweetness of her hope. Sarah sat across from him, her gaze tracing the scars on his knuckles, unspoken questions forming in the lines of her face. The quiet shattered with the buzz of Ethan's phone, Noah's name flashing like a warning flare. He stepped outside, the screen door slapping shut behind him as Benjamin glanced up from helping Lily with her drawing. "Trouble?" the medic asked, his voice low. "Always," Ethan muttered, answering the call. Noah's words came fast, clipped with urgency, the kind honed from years chasing leads in dimly lit offices. Hale had mobilized quicker than expected, calls to a network of crooked deputies stretching to the county line, whispers of a warrant being fast-tracked on fabricated evidence against Sarah. Worse, Hale's syndicate ties ran deeper than a single store. They funneled illicit hauls through Willow Creek's back routes, using locals like Rollins as blind eyes. "He's painting you all as vigilantes now," Noah said, static crackling like dry lightning, "interfering with official business. Feds are interested, but it'll take time. Hours, maybe days. Get her and the kid out if you can. Hale's cornered. Cornered rats bite hard." Ethan pocketed the phone, his mind racing like tires on loose gravel. He turned to find Sarah at the door, her apron dusted with flour from an impromptu batch of cookies, comfort baked in the face of fear. "What now?" she asked, reading the storm in his eyes. Lily wheeled up beside her, the angel pin catching the light like a talisman. "We move," Ethan said, voice steady as he weighed the risks. "Not far, just to a safe spot my crew knows. An old ranch house off the grid. Hale's coming for you, but he won't find easy pickings. Marcus'll cover the trail." The decision hung heavy, laced with the echo of Jake's promise. Protect the vulnerable, no matter the cost. Ethan had buried comrades for less, watched families fracture under war's cruel math. This felt personal now, a redemption threading through the miles, binding his scattered life to theirs. Sarah hesitated, glancing at Lily's wheelchair, the ramp outside a reminder of their fragility. "And if they follow? I can't run forever. This town's all we've got. Friends, doctors who know her case. Leaving feels like giving in." "It's not running, it's regrouping," Ethan replied, kneeling to Lily's level, his scarred hands gentle on the armrest. "You pleaded for protection, kid. We're giving it. Think of it as a ride, fresh air, stories from the road. My brothers'll make sure no harm touches you." Lily's face lit with a mix of excitement and nerves, her small nod sealing the pact. Benjamin packed a bag with essentials, meds, blankets, the sketch pad, his movements efficient, born from field hospitals where seconds meant survival. As the sun dipped toward the jagged hills, casting long shadows that clawed at the horizon, the convoy reassembled in the yard. Engines purred to life, a chorus of loyalty vibrating through the earth. Sarah locked the trailer, her key turning with a finality that twisted something in Ethan's chest. Lily rode with Benjamin in the pickup, her wheelchair strapped secure, while Sarah climbed into the sedan, Ethan trailing close on his bike. Marcus radioed in. "Road's clear so far, but spotted a tail, unmarked van hanging back. Shook 'em at the junction." The group rolled out, dust plumes rising like veils behind them, the highway unfolding in a blur of faded billboards and endless sky. Ethan led, wind tearing at his vest, the scent of hot asphalt and freedom sharp in his nostrils. Flashes of memory assaulted him, Jake's laugh around a campfire, the brotherhood forged in foxholes, vows whispered under starlit deserts. He'd drifted after the war, chasing horizons to outrun the ghosts. But this, shielding a mother and child from corruption's grasp, resurrected the fire. His crew followed without question. 55 souls who'd traded chaos for code. Their leathers a tapestry of tattoos and triumphs. Miles blurred into the golden hour. The ranch house emerging like a mirage. Weathered wood and a sprawling porch overlooking a dry creek bed, hidden by cottonwoods that whispered secrets to the breeze. They pulled in under cover of dusk. Bikes concealed in a lean-to barn that smelled of hay and old leather. Inside, the space was sparse but solid. Cots, a wood stove, lanterns casting warm pools of light. Lily explored with wide eyes, wheeling across the creaky floors, while Sarah unpacked, her shoulders easing for the first time since the store. Ethan stepped onto the porch, scanning the darkening landscape, the first stars pricking the velvet sky. Tyler joined him, prosthetic hand drumming the rail. "Hale's playing dirty. Heard from a contact? He's stirring up the sheriff for a roadblock come morning, thinks he can box us in." "Let him try," Ethan growled, the weight of impending clash settling like dew. "We've faced worse than roadblocks. This promise, Jake's, ours, it's the chain that holds us." Below, in the creek bed, fireflies danced, fragile lights against the night. Sarah called them for dinner, simple fare of canned stew warmed over the stove, the group gathering around a scarred table like kin reunited. As laughter mingled with the crackle of flames, stories of wild rides and narrow escapes, Ethan felt the bonds tighten. Lily pinned her drawing to the wall, bikes and home intertwined, a visual oath. But outside, the wind carried a faint rumble, engines distant but closing. Hale's retaliation brewed, a storm of badges and bluffs aimed at shattering their fragile sanctuary. Ethan rose, signaling the watch. The night deepened, suspense coiling like a spring as they braced for the moral reckoning that would test every scar, every vow, pulling them toward a dawn where justice demanded its due. The stars wheeled overhead like silent witnesses as the ranch house settled into the hush of midnight, the cottonwoods rustling with a wind that carried the faint, acrid bite of approaching dust. Ethan paced the porch, his boots soft on the weathered planks, the lantern's glow casting elongated shadows that danced like uneasy allies. Inside, the group had bunked down. Lily curled under a quilt on a cot, her breathing steady with the exhaustion of the day's upheavals, the angel pin tucked safely in her fist. Sarah sat vigil nearby, her eyes heavy but alert, while Benjamin brewed weak tea over the stove, its steam mingling with the earthy scent of the wood smoke. Marcus and Tyler had taken the first watch, their bikes positioned like crouching beasts at the tree line, headlights dimmed to slits. Ethan's phone vibrated once more, a terse message from Noah. Feds en route. Hale's warrants bogus, syndicate links confirmed. Hold till dawn. He pocketed it, the weight of the words settling like gravel in his gut. Dawn. That sliver of light when truths emerged from the dark, much like the mornings after patrols in forgotten wars, where survival hinged on unbreakable trust. Jake's face flickered in his mind, grinning under a helmet, promising they'd all make it home to keep their oaths. Ethan had failed him once, burying the guilt under miles of blacktop. But tonight, with Sarah and Lily's fragile world in the balance, redemption felt within reach. A low rumble shattered the quiet, engines growling from the east like a predator's approach. Headlights pierced the gloom, 4 trucks this time, their beams sweeping the creek bed as they fanned out to block the access road. Rollins led the pack, his silhouette unmistakable, but Hale's sleek SUV brought up the rear, its tinted windows hiding whatever desperation brewed within. The bikers stirred without alarm, Marcus signaling from his post, Tyler revving once to affirm their line. Ethan stepped into the yard, the cool night air sharp against his skin, as the crew formed up. 20 riders emerging from the shadows, a phalanx of leather and resolve that turned the ranch into a fortress of flesh and iron. "Last chance to turn back," Ethan called into the glare, his voice carrying clear over the idling motors. The trucks halted, doors slamming like judgments, and Hale emerged first, flanked by Rollins and a cluster of deputies whose badges gleamed falsely under the moon. The air thickened with the tang of exhaust and tension, the wind pausing as if holding its breath. Hale adjusted his tie, his face pale in the artificial light, but his tone dripped venom. "You've meddled enough, biker. This woman's under arrest for fraud. Evidence planted or not, the sheriff's signed off. Step aside, or you're all accessories to obstruction." Rollins nodded, hand on his holster, his men spreading out with deliberate menace, their boots crunching the dry earth. One deputy eyed the trailer, a subtle shift toward the door where Sarah now stood. Lily peeking from behind her. Ethan didn't flinch, his crew mirroring his stance. Immovable, engines humming low like a heartbeat. Arrest? On lies from a man whose ledgers bleed towns dry? "We've got the proof, Hale. Your schemes, your bribes." Noah's handed it to the feds. "They're coming with lights that don't bend to your coin." He gestured to Marcus, who held up a folder sealed against the dust, the documents inside a noose tightening around Hale's empire. The syndicate's threads unraveled there. Laundered funds, coerced silences, lives like Sarah's twisted to fit the narrative. Rollins advanced a step, his crooked badge catching the starlight. You got nothing but outlaw bluster. This ends now. But doubt flickered in his eyes, the moral chink widened by Lily's earlier plea echoing in the night. Hale's composure fractured, his voice rising. You think a pack of dropouts scares me? I've buried better men than you. From the porch, Lily wheeled forward, her voice cutting through like a clarion. You're the one scared. Mom didn't hurt anyone. She fights every day for me. For us, these men. They kept their promise. What have you got but shadows? Her words, small against the standoff, landed like stones in still water. One deputy lowered his gaze, the weight of her chair and unyielding spirit, stirring something buried, perhaps a memory of his own kin, fragile and fierce. Benjamin moved to her side, his medic's calm a shield, while Sarah gripped the doorframe, pride mingling with fear in her stance. Ethan seized the ripple, stepping closer to Hale. It's over. Your web's torn. Feds will trace it from Willow Creek to the border. Walk away clean, or ride the fall with Rollins here. Thunder rumbled distant, the sky lightening at the edges, as if the heavens approved the turning tide. Hale hesitated, eyes darting to his men, then to the horizon, where faint blue sirens flashed. Federal lights closing fast. Rollins cursed under his breath, backing toward his truck as the deputies faltered, the bluff exposed. Hale spun on his heel, barking orders to retreat, the convoy peeling out in a spray of gravel that settled like defeated dust. The rumble faded, leaving only the bikers' steady hum and the first bird calls of dawn. As the sun crested, gilding the ranch in gold, Ethan turned to Sarah and Lily, the crew dismounting with weary grins. It's done, he said, kneeling once more. Hale's empire crumbles. Justice catches the crooked without us lifting a fist beyond the stand. Sarah pulled him into a hug, tears tracing clean paths, while Lily beamed, pinning her drawing to his vest, a token of wings earned. The feds arrived minutes later, crisp suits contrasting the dust, confirming the arrests. Hale in cuffs, Rollins stripped of his badge, the syndicate's veil lifted. Noah's work had paved the road, but the angel's vigil held the line. Back in Willow Creek by midday, the trailer awaited, now a home unshadowed. Ethan lingered on the porch as the crew prepared to ride out. The desert breeze, carrying scents of renewal, sage and sun-warmed earth. You gave us more than protection, Sarah said, Lily waving from her ramp. You gave us family. Ethan mounted his bike, the engine roaring to life with the others. That's the promise, ma'am, one we keep riding. The convoy thundered away, chrome flashing farewell, leaving behind a legacy of quiet honor. In Ethan's pocket, Jake's photo felt lighter, the vow fulfilled. Not in glory, but in the simple act of standing true. The road unspooled endless, but for the first time in years it led toward light, binding broken souls into an unbreakable chain. If this tale of quiet courage and unbreakable bonds touched your soul, thank you for riding along. Please subscribe for more stories of redemption and hit that notification bell. We'll see you on the next horizon.